Several AEW talents have responded to CM Punk's rant on the MMA Hour, where he essentially buried the company. I'm going to tell you exactly what some of these talent had to say, and there are some doozies in there, including one talent who, quote, doesn't give a shit. We're going to get into all that. We're also going to be talking about Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, his status with WWE moving forward. Is he going to be sticking around? Is he going to be leaving? What the hell's going on with The Rock? All that, much more coming up in this video. So sit back, relax, smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Okay, so let's talk about CM Punk, the man who we seemingly cannot get away from, the man who is always in the news, the man who on Monday was on the MMA Hour with Ariel Helwani and put it all out there. He stated exactly why, from his perspective, things fell apart between himself and AEW. And I went over all of this in a 50-minute long video where I dissected everything Punk had to say. So go check that out in the archives. But for the brevity of this video, I will say this. Punk essentially said that there were 3 reasons why things did not work out in AEW. 1, he did not believe that AEW's business model was working. Number 2, he did not believe that Tony Khan as a boss was working. And number 3, he felt slighted because he perceived that the Young Bucks were putting stuff out there about him that were not true. Of course, there's a lot more to get into when we talk about all of these and breaking those down. That's why that video exists. Go check that out after you watch this. But Punk said that, and, a few days have passed, and we've had a few talent from AEW actually respond. Now, originally, we saw talent like Sammy Guevara and Daddy Magic take to Twitter and say that, AEW is a great company. AEW is why I'm still in wrestling and things of that nature, and they felt like they needed to defend the company. But since then, we have seen and heard, I should say, more overt mentions of CM Punk, including one by someone who has quite the history with Punk, Eddie Kingston. Here's a quote from Eddie Kingston. He was doing an interview with Adrian Hernandez and said the following: "You don't work for us. I don't give a fuck." There it is. Honestly, you don't work for AEW. So I don't care. That's it. I'm not even mad. I don't care. I know other people do. I don't really give a fuck because he doesn't work for AEW. That's why I look at it. If he worked for AEW and did that, then I might feel a certain way. That's Phil being Phil. Can't control him. That's his thing. He ain't me, and I ain't him. And that was really all Eddie Kingston had to say. And look, there are going to be people who kind of take that out of context and say, Eddie Kingston, look at that, taking a shot at CM Punk. I mean, he said a very, I thought, mature thing to say, which is like, but he said it in an Eddie Kingston way, which is like, look, Punk doesn't work here anymore. He can say whatever he wants. That's his right. I don't got a problem with it. I'm not saying nothing about it. That's fine. He basically said that. If he were to say something like, oh man, I CM Punk buried, we would all be talking about it. But that didn't happen. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are putting out fake news about this, but it's not true. So, but Eddie Kingston, seemingly took a high road here. I'm just saying, like, look, it is what it is. I don't really care. He doesn't work here anymore. He's doing him. Let him do him. Now, a little bit of a more, I think, overt mention, or I should say reaction to Punk was from Tony Schiavone, of all people, someone who Punk even mentioned in that MMA Hour interview. So Tony Schiavone said the following on the What Happened When podcast when he was asked about CM Punk's interview, and here's what he had to say. "I don't give a shit about it. I'm not going to get into this. I know what he said. Let him talk if he wants. I don't give a shit. That's all I can say. I can't get into that. It would be stupid for me to get into that. I have no idea what he said, with the exception of someone told me, oh, he brought your name up. So here's what he said." And I went, so what? Well, that's what Tony had to say. Tony Schiavone obviously was mentioned in that interview as someone who came up to Punk to go talk to Jack Perry in the wake of the Collision glass incident, as we'll call it. And I mean, he said it all there. He's like, look, I don't care. And I think like that is the prevailing sentiment, I think, from many people in AEW. It's just like, look, this happened. It is what it is. I don't care. And it can be taken in a few different ways. Like, people can take that as a bit of a slight. I mean, the one phrase there that I think, people are pointing to and that the first time I heard it was thinking about was, when Tony Schiavone at the end says, I know what he said. Let him talk if he wants. If you want to read into that, that could be Tony saying, look, whatever. He do whatever he wants if he wants. Like, kind of almost like ignoring Punk in a, I'm not going to say a disrespectful way, but, in a less than cordial way, right? And I think there might be something to that because I don't think Tony Schiavone wanted to be dragged into any of this. And I'm sure Tony Schiavone, who is very close to Tony Khan, like essentially one of Tony Khan's right-hand men, I'm sure that he did not appreciate some of the things that Punk had to say about that situation. We also have one more reaction from a talent, and then we're going to get into what Tony Khan had to say on today's ROH Media Scrum when asked about this situation. But last night, AEW Dynamite opened up with Adam Copeland coming out and cutting a promo where he essentially kind of mentioned the Punk stuff a little bit. Well, here's what he had to say. Quote, there's been a lot of negative BS that's been spewed this week. There has. Screw that. I want to talk about the positives. And he went on to say AEW makes pro wrestling fun, better, and AEW is where the best wrestle. Now, there are two perceived camps of thinking on this. One of them seems to be a group that believes that Adam Copeland came out there and he buried CM Punk. How dare he bury CM Punk? Then the other group, which I think is a little more correct, was one of, maybe Tony Khan probably told Adam Copeland, hey, go out there. Look, there's been a lot of negative stuff happening. There's been releases. There's been, the Punk interview. Like, let's give people some positivity. Let's maybe give us a good PR moment because we have a platform where, hundreds of thousands of people a week watch this show. Let's put it out there. So that seems like what's happened. I mean, like, I work in PR. Again, I don't work in professional wrestling, so it's a different thing. But in PR, one of the things you try to do is push out your messaging when these negative things happen. So it would make sense if that was the case here. As far as like people dragging Adam Copeland for doing this, I mean, he's just cutting a promo. And like, it's not like he said anything that wasn't true. Like, he said that there has been a lot of negative BS that's been talked about. And I think even the most, the most hardened Punk fans would agree. Like, from either perspective, it is negative BS. For CM Punk, I think he would even agree. Yeah, it was a lot of negative BS I said on there. You know why? Because there was a lot of negativity given my situation with AEW. And he even talked about it in that. He's like, it was just a negative. It got to be so negative that he couldn't take it anymore, and then he had to leave. He wanted out. He wanted out after All Out. Stuck around because of this collision show. He was still on the contract. They wouldn't let him go. Like, that's negativity. So whether or not you agree with the angle that Copeland potentially took on there, we don't know. He didn't explicitly say it, but it was negative BS. Everyone can agree on that. And it BS to the extent of like, man, should we really even be talking about this? But it is what it is. Lastly, let's talk about Tony Khan's reaction or lack thereof to this entire Punk thing. Tony Khan was asked multiple times on the was asked about the situation with CM Punk on the ROH media call, and he essentially declined to answer. Said he appreciated the question, but he had to decline the answer. He's not going to speak on it. And look, there's multiple reasons why Tony probably wouldn't want to talk about this. Number one, you don't want to give that, situation any more fire than it already has. Even though there's a lot of wrestling fans who I'm sure want that. You don't want to give that any more attention than it already has. And number two, more importantly, I'm sure from a legal standpoint, Tony Khan probably shouldn't talk about it, you know? I think, again, if you're looking at this from a PR standpoint, if you're looking at this from the perspective of someone who just wants this to go away, if you're Tony Khan, you also had a lot of negativity with the releases. You just want to get past this. Look, I'm not going to talk about it. Ask another question, which he did say. He told, I believe, the gentleman from WrestleZone to, look, ask another question. It's fine. I'm not going to answer this one. And he did. So kudos to Tony Khan for at least doing that. But, man, you're not going to get an answer, I think, from Tony Khan about the situation for a very long time, if he ever talks about it. I don't think it's going to be a very long time before Tony ever talks about this specific situation. Moving on to other news, we got to talk about the one, the only, the main event of WrestleMania this coming Saturday night, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. So Dwayne Johnson, now a board member of WWE TKO, has been on WWE TV for the last few weeks. It has absolutely electrified the status and vibe of all of the shows he's been on. Consecutive sellout streaks galore. WWE is having some of the hottest business that they've ever had, and it feels like it's just getting better and better as the week and time go by. Well, we now have interesting, I should say, insight about his future. This is courtesy of Brian Gewirtz, who actually quoted The Rock in ESPN. He said the quote, here's the quote in the article by ESPN, quote, "I'm not off the board after WrestleMania," Johnson told Gewirtz. "I'm still on the board, and I will always be a part of this. And we are in it now. This is our thing and will forever be our thing." Gewirtz said that he doesn't mean The Rock will be a, quote, fixture on Raw from now on. But I do think that there's going to be a Rock presence in WWE going forward until whenever he decides he doesn't want to. Gewirtz said, "I could definitely say that this isn't over a day. This isn't over the day after WrestleMania. I'm going to go off into the sunset, and then I'm going to go off into the sunset now. That ain't happening." So basically, Brian Gewirtz saying what I think a lot of people wanted to hear, that, look, Rock may not be a week-to-week fixture on TV anymore. He's obviously got movies. He's got other commitments that he's got to do, but he will be around. And he will be around more than he has been over the past number of years. And I think that this is probably the closest to confirmation that we will see more Rock matches moving forward. And I've been of the belief that Roman versus Rock is 100% the future as far as the WrestleMania 41 main event goes. I think that we all can agree on that. And then on top of that, look for Rock and Cody to be a planned match. I think Rock and Cody is definitely happening at some point. There is just too much fire in that feud. Like, I don't think the tag team match is enough. I really don't. And if you look at the segment from just a few weeks ago on Monday Night Raw, there's no way that WWE, TKO, everyone involved can look at that and say, we can't draw money with this. The beautiful thing about The Rock's return in recent times is that it has caused you to be in a situation where you can tell, like, multiple great stories. You can do a match between Cody and The Rock, and it will be just as big a draw as any Mania match you could put on. You could do Roman versus Rock. Hell, you could even do a tune-up match for The Rock or whatever with Seth Rollins, given some of the stuff that he said about Rollins. There's so much that you can do based off of this, and I love the fact that The Rock is going to be around. He should be around. $30 million is also a great incentive for him to be around. He just got that massive payout from that, from being appointed to the board. So love that for The Rock. Rock, share that wealth. Give me some of that. Let's go. Guys, if you guys want to share the wealth, y'all know what to do. Go over to patreon.com/Real Take Wrestling and subscribe over there for just $5 a month. You can get exclusive content, hours upon hours of watch-alongs, and also you can get cool videos like the video essays, the booking essays, all those types of things way ahead of time. Just go over to patreon.com/Real Take Wrestling. Also, remember to let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released.